You guys think he died from a drug overdose. You're wrong. There's a lot of y'all don't know.
Juice WRLD's longtime girlfriend, Ally Lotti, had long hinted that his tragic death wasn't what the world was led to believe in. Now it seems she was right. The person behind the drug deal that played a direct role in his passing has finally been sentenced, and it changes everything we thought we knew about Juice's final moments. The trial is over, and justice, at least by name, has been served. But if you think this sentencing brought true accountability, think again. The man responsible didn't use a gun. He came armed with a backpack full of deadly pills, and instead of facing real consequences, he's walking away with what fans are calling a slap on the wrist. Juice's mother herself was devastated, pausing in disbelief and saying, "This can't be it." Juice WRLD was living on the edge, but those who profited off his pain kept feeding the fire. His death wasn't just a tragic overdose, it was the result of a toxic system built on exploitation, addiction, and denial. Now that same system is trying to move on like nothing happened, but the truth is finally surfacing. The private jet, the raid, the panic, the seizure at Chicago Midway, those final moments are being re-examined. And Ally Lotti's viral clip just blew the official story wide open.
I'm like, oh, blah, blah, blah. You guys think he died from a drug overdose. You're wrong. You're wrong. Literally, you're wrong. So suck it. Okay?
In that emotional breakdown, Ally Lotti isn't just venting, she's screaming at the internet with raw pain and urgency. In her own words, this isn't just grief. It's a desperate plea for the world to wake up. She's not seeking demanding justice, calling out the people and systems that, in her view, played a direct role in Juice WRLD's downfall. Her voice shakes, not just from sadness, but from the weight of everything she's held in for years.
Grieve through myself while I let y'all grieve and talk mad on me. I don't care. I'm gonna go ahead and be what y'all want me to be, which is me. Okay? All 10K of y'all. And the late that Barbie. Yup.
She's claiming that the version of events we've all been told, that Juice WRLD simply died of an overdose, is a lie. And why would she say that? Because, according to her, what really happened on that plane was far more disturbing than the neatly packaged narrative the media presented. Here's what the timeline actually looks like. On December 8, 2019, Juice WRLD, real name Jarad Higgins, boarded a private jet from Los Angeles to Chicago. He had just turned 21, stepping into a new chapter of his life, full of promise. But the jet was carrying more than passengers. Federal authorities later revealed that the pilot had alerted them about weapons and drugs on board. When the plane landed at Chicago Midway Airport, chaos erupted. In a frantic attempt to avoid arrest, Juice WRLD allegedly swallowed several Percocet pills all at once. Many believe he didn't do this to get high but out of fear, hoping to avoid jail time. Moments later, he began seizing on the tarmac. That decision, made in panic and desperation, would end up costing him his life.
Oh, I think I got one.
But here's where it gets truly disturbing. Why was Juice WRLD even in that situation to begin with? According to DJ Academics, it wasn't just Juice's own decision. It was the result of constant pressure, chaos, and mismanagement by the very people who were supposed to protect him. Academics put it bluntly. I'm not saying he didn't take the pills that killed him, but the police that spooked him wouldn't have been there if the people around him hadn't put him in that position. And he's right. Even someone like Academics, who rarely holds back but isn't known for emotional commentary, the finger directly at Juice's inner circle. These weren't strangers, they were his friends, his crew, his management. The same people who let a 21-year-old board a private jet loaded with drugs and weapons. The same people who stood by and watched him panic and swallow a deadly dose of opioids instead of stopping him. And as for those pills, the U.S. Department of Justice confirmed that Henry Dina Close, associate of Juice WRLD, was the one who brought them on the plane. He was found guilty, but walked away with what fans called a slap in the face. Just 3 years probation and a fine. Juice WRLD is gone, Dean is free, and fans are outraged. Because this isn't just about one fatal mistake, it's about the years of ignored red flags, the cries for help that were brushed aside, and the people who stood by and let it happen while collecting a paycheck. In his final months, Juice was openly pleading for help. He admitted he was addicted, he talked about wanting to get clean, and he painfully revealed how young that addiction took hold. But instead of support, all he got was silence and a one-way ticket to tragedy.
You always had issues with drugs even before you started to get famous and rich?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was something that I was into early, low-key, due to music. Because, like,
I was a music head, so like in 6th grade, 7th grade, I'm hearing songs about sipping lean. And that it had me wanting to sip lean at like 11, 12 years old, bro.
Yeah.
So
Juice WRLD was only 11 years old when he fell into the grip of addiction. And according to him, it was music, specifically Future's lyrics, that made that dangerous lifestyle seem exciting and fun. We'll dive deeper into that influence later, but it wasn't just talk. His own mother confirmed everything. Asterisk, he told me he was ready to get help. Asterisk, she said, describing how, in the months before his death, Juice was starting to feel like himself again. He had stopped drinking lean, he was opening up about going to therapy, and for the first time in a long time, there was real hope. Then suddenly, it was over. And the most heartbreaking part, while his body was still warm, record label executives were already working behind the scenes to figure out how to cash in on his death. DJ blew the lid off that entire scheme, hinting at how quickly the business side shifted into overdrive, turning a tragedy into a marketing opportunity. For many fans, it wasn't just disrespectful, it was proof that the industry never truly cared about Jarad Higgins, the person, only Juice WRLD, the brand.
I wouldn't say necessarily if you're lying to fans about putting out Juice WRLD's music and you're having them basically forcing them to go support the Kid Leroy, that's the best thing to do. But truth be told, and I'm really trying to, I don't want to be disrespectful with this phrase, but one monkey don't stop a show. Like, Juice passed away. They running business over there. They're not about to be like, all right, let's keep crying and just put Juice's stuff out. They're trying to get the next horse to, again, it's business.
Did you catch that? Instead of giving fans the closure they deserved, Interscope Records allegedly used Juice WRLD's death as a marketing tool to promote another artist. That's not music, that's corporate necromancy. And what did fans get in return? Unreleased Juice WRLD songs, sliced up and stitched together like a Frankenstein project featuring verses from artists Juice never co-signed or even knew, a promised deluxe album that mysteriously never dropped. Unless you first streamed someone else's project, then they had the audacity to call it a tribute. Let's be real, this wasn't about honoring Juice, it was about squeezing every last dollar from his name. To them, Juice WRLD wasn't a person anymore, he was a product, a cash cow. Even in death. Now, ask yourself, how many people saw this coming? How many watched Juice spiral out of control and stayed silent? His girlfriend Ally Lotti said it best, asterisk, no one helped. And maybe that's the harshest truth of all. Juice WRLD cried out for help in his music, in his interviews. In private, the world turned its back until it was too late.
No one helped. No one. There was one person out of all the people that were there that were able to help. I'm not talking about the group that we were with, because they were handcuffed. So there's not much they could do. But everyone else that was there was only one person who helped me. It was a woman. I'm so grateful for her.
No one helped except for one woman, a stranger. Everyone else just watched. Because when Juice WRLD hit the ground, he didn't fall alone. He fell through the cracks of an industry that chews up young talent and spits them out. And unless we truly talk about it, not sugarcoat it, but really confront it, it's going to keep happening. The system didn't just fail Juice on the night of his death. It had been failing him for months. From legal loopholes to industry enablers, the breakdown ran far deeper than one tragic moment at an airport. The truth is, the people and systems meant to protect Juice WRLD were either asleep at the wheel, worse, benefiting from his downfall. What we saw wasn't just negligence, it was exploitation dressed up as support. Behind the scenes, the red flags were waving long before. December 8, 2019, Juice WRLD had been struggling with substance abuse since high school, and as his fame skyrocketed, so did his drug use, Xanax, Percocet, lean. But what most people don't know is that there were real efforts to help him just weeks before his death. While on tour in Australia, collaborators like Max Lord and others staged an emotional intervention. They told him they were scared, that they were going to lose him, and it worked. Juice agreed to enter rehab, and a date was set December 22, 2019. That date was supposed to mark a new beginning. But instead, Juice was dead 14 days too soon. Even little Bibby, who had taken on the role of label head, was shaken when he found out Juice was taking 4 Percocet pills at a time. He organized an intervention and described it as pulling teeth just to get Juice to agree to treatment. Bibby had already lined up a rehab program, but Juice, clearly still battling denial, said he wanted to taper down, not quit cold turkey. Let that sink in. They knew he was in deep, they knew the risks. He had agreed to get help, and still, he ended up on that plane with enough pills to end his life. So what went wrong?
Just felt like his best interest wasn't being looked out for. I think people had their own agendas. I think they liked the lifestyle. And they were young too, so I have to give them that. They're young, so they don't see things the way, we would see them. But I just think that he just didn't have the people in place that just tell him to stop or no, or he just didn't have that support system in.
Even Juice WRLD's own mother saw it clearly. The people around him weren't there to protect him. They were there to profit from him. When someone is making millions, their well-being often becomes secondary to the business. And while his team kept the machine running, the legal system was closing in. This was no longer just a personal battle. With addiction, Juice WRLD was facing serious criminal charges that could have ended his career and put him behind bars for decades. In November 2019, Juice and his entourage were searched by dogs and customs agents at LAX as they boarded a flight to Sydney, Australia. That incident reportedly landed him on the FBI's radar. From that moment, federal authorities were watching closely. So when his private jet landed at Chicago's Midway Airport on December 8th, they were ready. Authorities discovered 70 pounds of marijuana packed in 41 vacuum-sealed bags, 6 bottles of prescription codeine cough syrup, multiple firearms, including a .40 caliber pistol, a 29mm pistol, a high-capacity magazine, and metal-piercing bullets. 70 pounds of weed isn't for personal use, it's trafficking. And under federal law, that alone could carry a sentence of up to 15 years. Add in the illegal weapons, and Juice WRLD was potentially staring down a 40-year prison sentence. For a 21-year-old, that's practically a life term. And here's where the tragedy deepens. While Juice was spiraling, caught between addiction, legal pressure, and a desperate desire to get clean, the music industry kept milking his fame for every last cent. His management team knew how bad things were. They took him to doctors 20 or 30 times. They ran brain and heart scans. They had medical proof of what the drugs were doing to his body. Yet instead of pulling him out of the fire, they kept him on the road. They kept him in the studio. Because the truth is harsh. Dead artists don't make money, but neither do artists in rehab. Though there were real attempts to help him, they came far too late. His mother, Carmela Wallace, along with collaborators like Max Lord, Rex Coot, Adalar A.P. Bari, Peter Gidianwo, and even Lil Bibby, all participated in an intervention just 1 week before his death. They agreed he needed treatment. They had a plan. Juice had even agreed to go to rehab on December 22, 2019. But that's the part that hurts the most. How do you have an intervention 1 week and a funeral the next? The answer lies in a brutal truth about the entertainment industry. When someone is worth millions, the pressure to keep them working never stops. Rehab means canceled shows. Recovery means lost revenue. Sobriety means content that might not sell as well. So instead of immediate, intensive care, Juice was offered compromises. Instead of removing him from the toxic lifestyle, they tried to manage his addiction while keeping him productive. And that decision, his life.
You said that before his passing, he told you that he made the decision to get professional help.
Mm-hmm. He did.
Was he ready to go to rehab?
He sounded like it. And months before then, I say like in September, when I went to see him, he seemed like himself, like my baby.
Oh.
We just had such a good time hanging out. I brought him one of his favorite sandwiches from Chicago. So we were just hanging out, and he wasn't doing the lean anymore. I could tell it was a difference in him, that he wasn't doing the lean. I think he was still doing pills, but he told me he was ready to get help.
Juice WRLD's mother saw the change he was improving. He was ready to get help, but the system around him couldn't wait. The machine had to keep running, even if it meant grinding him up in the process. And then came the legal complications. No one talks about. In October 2019, the pop-punk band Yellowcard filed a $15 million lawsuit against Juice WRLD, claiming his hit Lucid Dreams copied their song Hollywood Died. For a young artist already battling addiction and staring down potential federal charges, this lawsuit was another crushing blow. The timing couldn't have been worse. Here was someone trying to get clean, trying to reclaim his life, and now he was being threatened with financial ruin over his biggest success. That kind of stress could break anyone. But perhaps the clearest proof of how the system failed him came after his death. Yellowcard initially moved forward with their lawsuit against Juice WRLD's estate, pausing only to wait for an executor to be named. Then, in July 2020, they abruptly dropped the case, citing concerns about public backlash and sympathy for his grieving mother. So while he was alive and struggling, they were ready to come after him, but once he was gone, they suddenly found their conscience. That's the system Juice was trapped in, one where people are disposable. Profit comes first, and compassion is conditional. Legal pressure became just another form of leverage. Interventions were scheduled around tour dates, not around his medical needs. The saddest part? It didn't have to be this way. The warning signs were everywhere. The people who loved him were fighting for him. The resources existed, but the industry that profited from his pain couldn't afford to let him recover. not when there was still money to be made. And after his death, Juice WRLD became something he never wanted to be in life, the center of a conspiracy empire that buried the real story beneath speculation, viral theories, and internet sleuthing. While his family grieved and fans mourned, conspiracy theories exploded online. But what made them so powerful was that they didn't feel entirely crazy, because the official story felt incomplete. Let's start with the biggest one, the theory that Juice WRLD faked his own death. This gained traction on TikTok and Reddit, fueled by a 2017 tweet where he wrote, "My goal is to get overly famous. Shine for a couple years, then fake my death." 2 years before his mainstream success, some fans believed this was a blueprint he executed. They pointed to flight tracker data showing a Falcon 900 jet landing in the Bahamas on December 8th, the same day of his reported death, suggesting he escaped rather than died. But here's the truth. Official reports confirm he was on a flight from California to Chicago, and his funeral attended by his family and close friends. Like Ski Mask, the slump god was held on December 13th, 2019. Still, the fact that so many people clung to this theory says something deeper. Fans couldn't accept the official version of events because it didn't add up emotionally or logically. And these theories weren't just coming from strangers online. People close to Juice fed into them. In 2021, fellow artist Clever released an album called *Crazy, with a track list whose first letters spelled out "Juice WRLD is alive." Was it a tribute, a marketing ploy, or something more? Fans on Reddit were divided. Some saw it as honoring his memory. Others saw it as manipulative. But the fact that an insider would intentionally stoke those rumors raises even more questions. Then came the darkest theory of all, that his label, Grade A Productions, was involved in his death. Some fans believe they orchestrated it to gain full control over his unreleased music, over 3,000 songs. This theory picked up steam when Ally Lotti, Juice's girlfriend, began posting increasingly cryptic and emotional statements online. In a 2022 video, she said, "If people knew what happened the day before Jarad passed, and the day that Jarad passed, which I cannot speak upon at this moment, but I just have to make sure that I am safe." That's not something you say if you believe your partner simply overdosed. That's something you say if you believe there's danger in telling the truth. Then came the business. Moves fast and massive. Within months of his death, Juice WRLD's music catalog was sold in a 9-figure deal, one of the largest posthumous sales in music history. His unreleased songs were being packaged, marketed, and released. His voice was used in collaborations he never approved. His image was printed on merchandise he never designed. And this goes far beyond conspiracy. It's the cold, documented reality of how the industry exploits its stars. Even after they're gone, fans started questioning whether these posthumous releases truly reflected Juice's artistic vision, or if they were just profit plays. After all, when a 21-year-old dies with thousands of unreleased songs, who gets to decide what his legacy looks like? Sadly, it's often the same people who failed to save him in life, and the theories didn't stop there. Some fans began connecting Juice's death to a broader pattern: young, vulnerable, talented artists like Lil Peep and Mac Miller, who battled addiction and died suddenly, becoming even more profitable in death than they were in life. Is it a conspiracy? Or is it just the inevitable result of an industry that values money more than human lives? The conspiracy web stretched even further. Some pointed to a TikTok trend before his death, where users faked seizures to a remix of lucid dreams, calling it prophetic. While any rational person knows this trend didn't cause his death, his seizure was caused by drug toxicity. The fact that fans even looked for those connections speaks volumes. They were desperate for an explanation, because the official story that a 21-year-old with money, support, planned rehab, and people who loved him still ended up dead on an airport floor just didn't feel complete. In his final months, Juice WRLD started waking up. He was cutting people off. He was recognizing the exploitation. He was trying to take back control of his life and his story. But in the end, the machine kept running until it ran right over him. I
don't got all my friends no more. Like, I could probably count my friends on one hand. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of people switched up. A lot of people feel entitled. I don't owe nobody shit, man. Like, they not the ones writing my raps. You know what I'm saying? I'm the creative genius behind everything that I got going on. So, like, I don't owe nobody.
But there's another controversy, one that cuts even deeper than the conspiracy theories. It forces us to ask a painful and uncomfortable question. What would have happened if Juice WRLD had survived that night? Because the debate around that question reveals something disturbing about how society values human life versus legal consequences. On social media and forums like Reddit, users speculated that Juice WRLD was staring down a future of serious prison time, some estimated 40+ years if charged with federal drug trafficking and weapons offenses. The private jet he arrived on was loaded with 70 pounds of marijuana, multiple firearms, prescription codeine, and metal-piercing bullets. That's not a minor infraction, and the federal government had already been watching him for months. But here's where the conversation took a dark turn. Fans began debating whether his death actually saved him from the humiliation of arrest. the collapse of his career, or life behind bars. Some posts went as far as to suggest that his alleged decision to swallow several Percocet pills was a smart way to avoid prison. Others called it suicide by overdose, a tragic but calculated move to escape legal ruin. One user wrote, *70 pounds of weed and drugs while flying internationally. That's serious jail time. Maybe he knew. Another said, *he popped the pills to avoid a 40-year sentence. Can you blame him? Let that sink in. We're debating whether a 21-year-old was better off dead than being forced to navigate the American legal system. We're analyzing whether dying on an airport floor was somehow less cruel than living through years in prison. And underneath that debate is a much bigger truth, one that hits especially hard for young black men in America. Because in a system where minorities are disproportionately sentenced, where the war on drugs has destroyed generations of lives, and where fame offers no real shield, the question becomes chillingly real. Was Juice WRLD's death a tragedy, a mercy? We'll leave you to answer that. Thanks for watching. If you found this story powerful, emotional, or eye-opening, don't forget to keep the journey going. Click on one of the suggested videos on your screen now for more content that dives deep into the stories others won't tell.